Welcome to this AgileXRM demo. AgileXRM, Dialogs and BPM for the Microsoft Power Platform.
In this video, we're going to show you some of the main capabilities of AgileXRM. Before jumping straight into the demo, we will give you some context of the business need and the process built. We will show you a live demo of the app and how users interact with it. Next, we will show you how to make changes to this app and design processes with AgileXRM to adapt to new business needs. Lastly, we will see how to roll out a new version and manage live instances.
To display the capabilities of AgileXRM, we have built a simple resource request app. This is a usual need of some of our clients. An employee may require a new webcam, a headset, a mobile phone. We're simply going to call these resource requests. We've created an application that manages the full life cycle of the request. The app is a model-driven app and supported by an AgileDialog and an AgileXRM process. Employees can submit requests for resources. Each resource belongs to a department like IT, security, or marketing. Each department has a manager that must approve the requests for resources belonging to their department. Depending on the resource value, requests might require CFO approval too. If the request is approved, the corresponding fulfillment team needs to allocate the resource and update the delivery date. After fulfillment, the process will wait until the delivery date is reached. When this date is reached, the process notifies the requester via email and closes the request. During the course of the process, the status of the request is updated accordingly, and the requester notified when needed. If we were to create a schematic process diagram, we could have something like this. Employee submits a new resource request. Manager approves or rejects the request. Depending on the cost, it requires CFO approval. Next, the corresponding department fulfills the allocation of the resource. The process waits until the delivery date. And finally, the user is notified of the delivery. Throughout the process, the status of the request is updated accordingly. A business analyst using a process modeling tool could design the following process diagram. This is the process we are going to demo. Let's have a look.
Let's submit a new resource request and see how a user interacts with the app. We open a browser and head to our organization's homepage. Here we see a list of apps available. We click Resource Request App to open it. This is the Resource Request app. As you can see, we have a list of active resource requests. This is supported by a table in Dataverse, and we have an option to the left to start a new resource request. To submit a new request, a typical Power Apps user could fill out an out-of-the-box form. This form could have several fields with some rules and may require some advanced knowledge from the user to fill out correctly. In this case, we've replaced this form with an AgileDialog. An AgileDialog is a wizard-like sequence of dynamic forms that will change depending on the context of what the user selects or enters, providing a guided way to capture the required information, and practically without training, the user can submit a well-formed request. First, we're presented with a welcome screen that informs us that we're about to submit a new resource request and provides a help link. If we press Start, we'll initiate this request. We are presented with the first form where we can select the requester. This is a lookup control linked to the user's table. It comes pre-selected with our username, but we can search any other users of the platform. Next, we have a drop-down to select a department from the list. If we select a department, the department manager is displayed next to it, for our reference, as they will need to approve our request. Also, the corresponding resources of that department are displayed. All this information is coming from Dataverse tables. Therefore, we are already using the existing data structures in our organization. If we select the IT department, it displays the corresponding resources. If we click on Laptop, we are automatically taken to the next form, where we need to specify the usage of this laptop, whether it is for graphic design, programming, or video editing. In AgileDialogs, we can enable the back button and change what we have entered or selected previously. If we select Smartphone and click Next, notice this form is different. The next form is decided dynamically depending on the previous selection. In this form, we need to select the telecommunications carrier. for example BT Group, and the available manufacturers for that carrier are displayed below. We select Google. We click Next, and we are presented with the next form, where the user needs to specify the desired delivery date. This is a calendar control, but has some enhanced functionality. If we open the calendar, we see the date cannot be previous to today's date. Makes sense that the delivery date must be in the future. This form has implemented date validation. We select, for example, the 1st of September. Also, we can optionally add any comments to our request. This is a rich text control where we can style our text. If we click Next, we are presented with a summary where we see all the details that we have entered throughout the request. We can go back or use the top breadcrumbs to amend any of the details entered previously. When we are happy with our request, we click Submit, and this starts a new resource request approval process. What this does is register a new row in the resource request table and start the resource request approval process. This message tells us that the request has been submitted successfully and we can close it now. As you can see, AgileDialog provides total flexibility on how to collect information with validation and guidance for the user. These dialogues can also be exposed to third parties, such as customers or providers in portals to interact with our processes. Let's have a look at the resource request we have just submitted. Clicking on Resource Requests, we get a list of the active resource request, and we locate the request for a smartphone due the 1st of September. We click on it and the native Power Apps form displays all the request information. On the right, we see the timeline where all the activity is logged. This is an out-of-the-box Power Apps form. Notice there is a new tab, View Process. Clicking on this tab displays a Visio diagram. This is the resource request approval process just started, a diagram built with AgileXRM and designed in Visio. And the first thing it does is change the status request to Manager Approval. We confirm this status on the top right corner, Manager Approval, and has created an activity for the department manager to approve the request. This is an out-of-the-box task activity in Power Apps. If we click on it, we see the details, a task assigned to Buster Keaton a few seconds ago. Back into the General tab, we review the timeline on the right. We see the Manager Approval task appears here, and it active, pending to be completed.
Let's see how Buster can manage this task. We open another browser. Navigate to the Power Apps home. Log in with Buster credentials. Buster has been provided access to the Resource Request app. We click to open it. We click on Tasks and see the list of pending tasks that Buster needs to complete. The latest one is the Manager Approval for our request for a smartphone due on September 1st. We click on this request to see the details. This displays a custom task form. There could be multiple forms available for a task, and users might have the ability to change this form to, for example, the task form. If we change the form, the system reverts to the Manager Approval form. This is because this task is governed by the AgileXRM process, and in order to focus on the specific job to be done, it enforces the usage of the Manager Approval form. This provides more guidance to the user as to what needs to be done in this task. We see the description of the task and the relevant resource request details. On the right, we see a section to take a decision. We can approve or reject this request. If Buster rejects this request, he will need to provide a compulsory rejection reason. In this case, he will approve the request. And to complete this task, he simply clicks Mark Complete. The task is now complete.
Let's go back to our user and open the Resource Request app. We open our smartphone resource request and click to view the process. We see that the process has already advanced and the process diagram has been updated. A business rule has been evaluated taking into account Buster's approval. And then another business rule has evaluated whether this request requires CFO approval. This evaluates if the resource's cost is greater than a threshold, but it did not require approval at this stage, and therefore the process updated the status to fulfillment. We see on the top right corner that the status reason is now fulfillment. Next in the process, there is an email activity. This email is tracked in Power Apps and notifies that the request has been approved and awaiting fulfillment. We can see the email has been logged and appears in the timeline component, and we can view the email contents. Looking at the process, we see that another condition has been evaluated based on the department of the resource. The system assigns a task to a different team depending on the department, IT, maintenance, or other. Because we requested a smartphone which belongs to the IT department, the system has created a task for the IT fulfillment team. If we look into the timeline, we see a task assigned to the IT fulfillment team. Our user belongs to this team, therefore we can complete this task. We simply click here to open it.
We see the corresponding task form is loaded. This one is specific for a request fulfillment for IT. Again, there can be several forms to manage the task, but the process will force us to use this form now. We see the task description and the resource request details. The participant needs to fulfill this request by supplying the requested resource, and then update the delivery date. In this case to the 1st of October. Once done, click on the Mark Complete button.
Back to our request, if we look into the process diagram, the process has advanced and has updated the status of the request. If we refresh, we see the status is now pending delivery. Notice also that the delivery date has been updated accordingly. Having a look at the process, we see that after fulfillment, the process is waiting until the delivery date in this step. If we click on it, we see the due date is in 7 months, because we said that we wanted this resource for the 1st of September, but actually the fulfillment team changed the delivery date to the 1st of October. In this waiting state, processes do not consume any resources. We can have hundreds or thousands of processes waiting in this stage and will not affect the performance of our system due to the publisher's subscriber mechanism used here. If we have the appropriate permissions, we can change the date that this task is due. But for the sake of this demo, we cancel this task. This will make the process continue, changing the status to delivered and sending an email notifying about the delivery. This process is now complete. If we refresh this request one last time, we see that the status is now delivered and the request is inactive. In the timeline, we have full visibility of all the tasks that have been completed, the emails that have been sent, and we also have a snapshot of the initial request that was submitted. If we click on this task, we see the process task, and this is the dialog history. Here we see all the forms that the user filled out when submitting the initial resource request with the details entered and the final summary. Therefore, we have a full audit trail of everything that was entered and everything that was accepted when submitting a new request. This is how an end user will interact with the AgileXRM processes and AgileDialogs.
Let's have a look at how we make changes to this process. We want to allow users to be able to cancel a request when it's no longer required. Having a look at an existing request, users can deactivate and select Canceled, but there might be related automations or processes running. We want to make sure that everything is synchronized and closed when we cancel a request. Let's make that change into our process. To design and edit our processes, we use AgileXRM Process Modeler. Process Modeler is an add-on to Microsoft Visio that connects the processes with our Power Platform environment. When we open Visio, Process Modeler loads automatically. Here we have the list of environments available, and we simply select one and connect. On the left, we have the Environment Explorer with the applications that we have created organized in folders. We open the Resource Request folder and open the Resource Request Approval process. This process is connected to our Dataverse environment. You see that this is the same diagram that the end user sees in the process viewer. To make our process aware when a resource request is canceled, we are going to use the Wait for Update shape from the Automatic Activities stencil. We drag it to the diagram, and we are going to call it Wait for Canceled. We configure the shape by clicking the Query Expression link on the bottom of the Properties pane. This advanced find query is the same experience that we have in Power Apps when we configure an advanced filter. Because this process is connected to the resource request table, we have all the information, columns, and fields available to us. We are going to search for requests that are canceled. Therefore, we select the status reason column. We leave the equals operator. And the options available are also loaded for us. We select Cancelled. This will compose a fetch XML query that will listen to requests that are cancelled. We click OK to complete this configuration. We connect this step with the start step, creating an alternative path. After this step, when the request is actually cancelled, we are going to add a note to the process to inform that it was a user who cancelled the request. We add an add note shape from the automatic activities stencil to our canvas, and we give it a name. To set the subject of this note, we set the corresponding property from the property pane. We type the text of the note. We type in $opening brace to open the context window. We get a view of the process variables, but also the context of the Dataverse table row. Browse through the resource request details, and select the Modified by field, and place it in our note. And click OK. We connect this wait for cancelled with the add note, and connect the note with the end of the process. By making this change, we are making our process aware of when requests are cancelled. So we close the process and do not leave orphan instances of the process running. Another enhancement we want to add to our process is reusing the existing work that we have done in our organization. For example, reusing cloud flows created with Power Automate. AgileXRM is a fantastic complement to Power Automate. We have an existing cloud flow that posts a message to a group chat to inform when a resource request has been rejected. To trigger a flow in AgileXRM, we simply drag the trigger flow shape into our canvas. This message is posted when the request is rejected. So we place this new step here, and we give it a name. To use this integration, we simply select the flow that we want to trigger. The list of flows displayed here are the ones enabled to interact with AgileXRM via a specific connector. We select our flow post message to Teams, and we connect this step with the Notify Rejected email step, rerouting the existing connector. And we connect this to the end of the process. When the request is rejected, we will receive a message on our Teams group chat. By making this change, we are reusing an existing flow from our organization. This shape enables us to use the catalog of connectors that Power Automate provides for us. Let's make a final change in this process regarding escalations. Often tasks get stuck in users' inbox because they have too many approvals to manage, or they come back from holidays, and they have a lot of tasks to do. And it is easy for some of them to fall behind. Now, there are several options to escalate tasks. One of the most common is sending email notifications. For example, in this manager approval step, we can configure several email notifications, one of them being a reminder email message that can be sent before or after the due date. This will just remind the user that they must complete this activity. Another way to manage escalations is to create an auto-escalation in our activity. In our case, when a request is not approved by the department manager within 3 business days, we consider it late, and it is auto-rejected. In the activity properties, there is a time span section where we can configure the allocated time to complete this activity. We can set a fixed number of units or a context variable in the length property. We set it to 3. We can select different time units: hour, day, week, month, etc. We leave day, and we can set the property business time to true. This means that the due date calculation will take into consideration the work calendar. For example, if a user is assigned a task on Friday afternoon, and we have set business time to true, the system will not consider Saturday and Sunday, and will start counting the time from Monday morning. To configure what happens when the allocated time expires, we add a timer to this activity. We right-click and select Add Timer. This timer creates an alternative path that kicks off after the allocated time to complete this activity expires. We connect this path with the rejected step. For a consistent styling, we set this path's color to red as all the other rejection paths. With these 3 simple changes, we want to deploy a new version to our system.
To do so, we use the Publish functionality. When we click Publish, the process identifies the current version 25, and we are going to deploy version 26. This means that AgileXRM has a versioning system where each process is tied to a process version, and we can roll back to previous versions if necessary. On the top toolbar, the View History button displays all the versions of this process. We can add a comment to this version. and choose when to release this change. Release it right now or schedule this change to be released at a further date. For example, when a regulation comes into force, some processes or new versions of the processes may deploy automatically. For the moment, we are going to release it now and click OK. And just like this, the new version of our process is deployed. Notice, we do not have to stop or disable any previous processes or services to deploy and publish a new version of our process. This is done without any downtime.
Now that the new version of our process is published, it is available to users right away. Let's start a new instance and see these changes live. We click New Request and start a new request. Select the IT department. This time we choose a laptop that we are going to use for programming and that we need for April 1st. We do not have to enter any comments. And then submit this request. The process has started. We look at the details of the resource request for that laptop due on the 1st of April. Looking into the view process diagram, we see it is already running the latest version with a timer and wait for canceled as well. Let's cancel this request and see if the timer works. We click the deactivate button, select canceled and deactivate. Now, in a few seconds, the mechanism will trigger and notify our process instance and cancel the process. We could have hundreds of instances in this waiting state and will not consume our resources. The diagram is already updated and the process is complete. Let's check the timeline in the General tab. We refresh the timeline. Notice the note has been added informing that the request was cancelled by Charles. Our mechanism to listen to status changes works just fine.
However, only the new process instances that start from this moment onwards will run the updated version of our process. What happens with the already running process instances? Let's have a look at one of those instances. We choose, for example, this smartphone request and check the view process. You can see it is running an outdated version of the process with no timer or wait for update. If we have the appropriate permissions, we can migrate this process instance to the latest version. First, we need to suspend the instance temporarily and click here to start the migration tool. The migration tool shows the current version to the left and the target version to the right. We choose to upgrade to the latest version, which is version number 26. But we could also roll back to version 25, 24 or previous. We choose version 26. All the mappings are done automatically for us. We simply click OK to migrate this instance, and click here to resume it. And now the process runs the latest version. We can confirm this because this version has the escalation. This escalation has triggered because this was an old request. Therefore, the request status has been set to rejected, an email has been sent, and the flow has been called to post a message to Teams. Let's check our Teams quickly. And here is the message. The request for the smartphone has been rejected. Back to our request, let's refresh quickly to confirm that the status is now inactive and rejected. Finally, there are other runtime changes that we can make in our process if we have the necessary permissions. We can alter the flow by skipping ahead or moving backwards. Let's take this existing request for a roll-up banner. Imagine the scenario where this banner is already approved and we have received it, and we do not need to wait for approval anymore. We could open our view process to skip ahead to the delivered step. There is a functionality called Change Flow. We click on it. We need to select the active step and the step that we want to go, which in our case is Set Delivered. When we click OK, the process will jump to that step. And therefore update the status, send the corresponding email, and the process will complete. If we refresh the request, we can confirm is now inactive and delivered. This is obviously only possible if you have the appropriate permissions. This was a short demo highlighting some of the capabilities of AgileXRM.
As you have seen, both Agile Dialogs and Agile processes integrate seamlessly into Microsoft Power Platform and combine perfectly to provide business process management capabilities. AgileDialogs provides a powerful and simple way of interacting with Dataverse and provides extensive flexibility and validation. And AgileXRM processes are easy and quick to design and change as required with fast deployment and no downtime. Thank you very much for watching. We hope you liked this demo. If you want to watch more videos like this one, head to our YouTube channel. If you want more information, head to our website agilexrm.com. And why not try it for yourself? Request our free community edition. Thank you very much.